evening. I'm Jennifer Walker. So this is the LA River, and just there's a lot of dynamic opportunities with the LA River, and with a lot of the watersheds throughout the state of California. But my presentation today is focused on regional sustainability and watershed health. My company, Waterearth, is a water resources and environmental firm. We work throughout California, also throughout Texas, and in a few other places as well. And I'll leave my cards afterwards. You're more than welcome to follow up if you'd like additional information or have questions on anything, but we should be able to answer most questions here today. All right, so historically, as civil engineering, we've kept wastewater, stormwater, water, pavement as separate disciplines. And I was at a conference maybe about almost 20 years ago in Canada, and kind of started seeing the concept of integrating these systems as a way to become more sustainable. And most of the things that the presenter talked about, Dr. William James, at that time, most of them we're actually seeing happening today. Some of them with regards to reuse of human urine and things like that maybe aren't happening as much, but we do have water recycling and reclamation, so even those are happening. But we're going to focus on how to bring all of these systems together. Might not be quite so virtual reality as what ASCE is doing right now, but looking at how to integrate these systems. And I'm going to start with the Los Angeles Zoo. So I won't go into a lot of detail, but it's a very fun project, and it illustrates the one water concept and really how to be sustainable in all aspects of water resources. So it's a very iconic place. It's located next to Griffith Park. It's in a kind of hilly area, next discharges to the Los Angeles River. Waterearth was involved in the vision plan, which was really very fun. I got a lot of behind-the-scenes tours of exhibits and things that you never know actually happen or go on when you're not at a zoo. Like there's a lot of mechanical and civil systems that you don't see when you're just there looking at the exhibits. So we're now in the EIR phase for CEQA, and we're not too far into that, so I can't share a lot of results right now. I'm going to focus more on what was planned in the vision plan. So basically the idea was to take the zoo and divide it into 6 zones or drainage areas, and to try to capture all of the stormwater runoff from the zoo, and then store it underground and ideally reuse it for irrigation or other needs like toilet flushing within the zoo. And there's actually huge potential for that there. But potentially discharging some with treatment or to the water recycling plant. Any stormwater that's just discharged needs to be cleaned up and treated before it goes into the LA River. So the existing parking lot actually already has LID features. It was recently upgraded, so it has porous pavement. This is from an interpretive sign from a project we did in Citrus Heights in the Sacramento area. But in any case, they've already got kind of a start towards that sustainability element. The underground storage that I'm talking about could be something similar to this Kudo system, or it could be more similar to some of the projects that LA County is doing, which are very large, like concrete structures below ground to capture stormwater, either for infiltration or reuse. Here's one, a site under construction, underneath porous pavement. And then so this is the existing site I mentioned, so it has permeable pavement and bioretention. So it's really ideal to kind of leverage that and bring the sustainability and resiliency. I might not say resiliency a lot today, but anytime we use low impact development or these multi-use features, we're really building resiliency into a project. So the soils within the zoo are actually pretty good in terms of if we want to infiltrate. The idea is first to try to reuse the water, the captured stormwater on site, but potentially there might be some infiltration. And this is the photo of the LA River. So there's a lot of trash. There's a trash TMDL. There's other pollutants of concerns and TMDLs also. So we really want to look at, we're not going to clean the river with one project, but what all of these projects I'm going to show have in common is, if each redevelopment project, implements today's current standards, we can start to see some improvement. But I'll also talk about some more regional projects which have a targeted goal to really begin improving watershed health or cleaning it up. So there's a pretty good potential for erosion, a little bit for landslides. So this is really important because there's it's hilly, there's some topography in certain areas, but the architect actually proposed building a canyon through a certain portion so that we could have a Condor Canyon within the zoo. So that requires special attention in terms of making sure that there's no impacts, both erosion and water quality. So this is kind of a rendering of what that Condor Canyon would look like. And the idea too is to bring in more like native California species, not just really on the planting side, but also the animal side. And then, it was really important they did public outreach meetings. Well, the public is really concerned about elephants. So part of the master plan was actually redone to expand the area for elephants to make sure that they have enough space. But this is what the Condor Canyon area looks like right now. So it is pretty hilly. The erosion potential might not be as bad as we thought. It's they're looking at the geotech right now, but it's potentially underlain by bedrock. So we'll see on that. But yeah, so all of the facilities, like where they have pools or tanks, they have different operating protocols. So some of the pools, like the Hippos, they're very dirty. So they get emptied every day. Some of the pools, like the Lions, not so dirty, so more like weekly. Some can even be more of an annual basis. So they're all have different operational protocols based on how clean or dirty the water is. Animals that are on life support systems, and it's not what you think of for life support systems, like a hospital or something. It just means that the water is highly filtered. So not that dissimilar to drinking water or even stormwater filtration on the industrial side. That water tends to get saltier. It's a little bit harder to reuse for irrigation or other needs, but it's also constantly kind of recirculated. There's also USDA regulations that don't really allow recycled water to be used in those types of exhibits. So there's some regulatory complications as well that we'll be working through. But yeah, here's some of the kind of mechanical water-related equipment behind the scenes in the elephant exhibit. The waterfall just kind of recirculates. So they're already doing some things that are pretty sustainable in treating and reusing the water. But there's definitely more that can be done as the zoo redevelops. So it gets really dirty, like the sidewalks have to be hosed down, both because they're potentially dusty, but also you have a lot of traffic, you've got spills and other things. So that water currently is just essentially used for cleaning once and then wasted. So with the stormwater capture concept, even the cleaning water would be captured. And then irrigation. So while we're all used to, hey, we want low water use plants or a mix of low and medium, maybe a teeny bit of high water use, in a zoo environment, they're really trying to match the plants to the exhibit. So in some cases, you might not really use a desert plant or an adapted California plant. It may be more of a tropical plant. So looking at increasing the efficiency of irrigation, where can we use either recycled water that's available or the stormwater that's captured and treated on site. So excess irrigation water, that's an important potential stormwater runoff pollutant issue, because anytime we have excess irrigation running off, it's potentially carrying fertilizer and other nutrients. So there's some management items as well. But from a water conservation standpoint, high efficiency irrigation, low water use plants where it makes sense or California friendly, and then recycled water or captured stormwater. This interpretive site and bioretention element is from the Riverside County Flood Control District. So this site, this is a demonstration site that's won, probably a dozen awards now, and they just recently won an additional ASCE award for retrofitting the site with and continuing to monitor it. But elements like communications, graphics, interpretive signage are really important components of these types of projects in terms of educating the public. It also helps, whether it's a public agency or a private client, it helps, or Cal Poly, it can help to brand what the agency is doing that is sustainable and resilient. Okay, so I usually start with like the bigger picture projects, but I'm going to do a little different mix today because even these small ones, this is a very tiny bioretention area, can have an impact on the watershed, if we do enough of them within a single watershed. So this is the Venice Auxiliary Pumping Plant project in the Los Angeles area. And little site, shouldn't be too much trouble, but it's about the third project associated with this treatment plant that's been done in recent years. So there's a little bit of community, hey, we're sick of all these projects being stacked, which requires more mitigation, more community outreach, and a higher level of scrutiny on the analysis. So instead of just a site analysis, it ended up being an entire watershed analysis where we looked at the hydrology, water quality, and hydraulics of the Grand Canal system to show that this project would not have an impact or that it was mitigated. A little bit challenging because it's in a liquefaction zone and the area for bioretention was extremely limited. So we ended up pairing it up with a little pocket park in there to get it to fit in. Now, again, so does this one thing fix water quality in a watershed? No, it obviously doesn't. It's going to, keep it at the status quo or make it a little bit better. But as we, start to leverage and do multiple redevelopment projects, we can start to see a positive impact. This is up in the Anchorage area. It's their first rain garden that they constructed. And you can see it coming out of the winter months. So, it's really important whether, whatever the conditions are that we customize the design, to our specific local climate and topography. This is a site level project in LA, but it has watershed level significance because it's at the confluence of the LA River and Arroyo Seco. It's called Confluence Park Phase 2. So Phase 1 was done a couple years ago. It's been constructed. The Phase 2 is basically, it's like in a clover leaf of an intersection. So this is up on a bridge looking down at the site. Unfortunately, for stormwater, it's being used as a staging area right now for sanitary sewer pipelines and improvements. So what that means is we've just finished community outreach and we're now moving into like preliminary design. What that means is available geotechnical data is not that great because it's not accounting for the compacted nature of the site. So we do need site-specific geotech, but it also means we're starting with a very compacted site. So we have to look at not just what's going on in the upper layers, but also further down, especially because we're looking at opportunity for stormwater capture and whether it can potentially be infiltrated or maybe reused on site. I don't think the water budget's going to work out for that, so we'll be trying to look at infiltration if we can. But basically, this is kind of a sculpture area. The existing park is over here, and then these two segments of the proposed park are located in here. You can see on the historic kind of firm map where it is in relation to the river. So it's super highly urbanized, but it's a great opportunity to provide outreach and connectivity for the general public. Most likely the heavy users might even be bicyclists who are riding the LA River Trail and kind of stop off to fill at the water bottle stations. Up in the Bay Area, Oakland Fire Station #1. So again, this is very site specific. It's a retrofit at a fire station. But the whole reason this project came about is that there was a water quality violation, and so this was kind of negotiated as part of their MS4 permit agreement to do this project. So it has an important role in runoff from this site, but it plays a greater role in even just education of city staff and improving water quality within the watershed. So when we talk about resiliency, there is sometimes a need to design redundancy into features. So this is a permeable pavement driving lane, and it actually, the pavers ended up being less expensive than traditional reinforced concrete to carry the fire truck load. But we also know the city expects the fire department to do all the maintenance. Well, the fire department is not going to get out there with the vacuum sweeper, which is what needs to be done periodically. So this permeable pavement could clog at some point, if not maintained, and we kind of don't think it's going to be. So there's a slot drain in here so that any overflow or excess flow is captured and discharged into a bioretention area where it provides the required water quality treatment. So we have, I guess, safety factors or redundancy in there, so it is a resilient feature even with less than ideal maintenance. LA Metro Transit Authority, so they are really, similar to LA County, really trying to push for more sustainability, more envision, cutting edge projects. This particular project received a grant. It's a permeable concrete demonstration project at a maintenance division. So, when you think of transit authorities, they're kind of industrially, it's transportation oriented. It makes it a little bit challenging for green infrastructure. But this is constructed in a parking area. Basically 39,000 square feet of porous concrete will treat 251,000 square feet of contributing surface area for this project. And the goal is to treat the 85th percentile event. So any overflow drains into the bioretention. The plants are really tiny right there, so you can hardly see them. And this overflow inlet does not have the top on it yet. And then any overflow from that ends up draining into a infiltration trench. Another grant project that was funded, the whole premise was to help improve water quality within the watershed. However, most of these projects are multi-benefit. So, water quality within the watershed, is it improved from the site? Yes, it is. But the school district gets extreme benefits, which we'll see in a minute. Parking lot project, because of the soils and the rainfall, we were essentially able to infiltrate the 100-year event and all of the annual runoff. That doesn't happen on every project, but there is that possibility when things line up. When not, if they don't, that's okay. Regardless, even when there's minimal infiltration, we still get the water quality filtration benefits. So the idea was to take this existing parking lot. The building had some structural flooding issues because of the way it was graded. To redo the grading, put in porous pavement parking areas, some infiltration basins. Personally, I would have rather had bioretention, but the school didn't want bioretention. They wanted to minimize their plantings for maintenance reasons. And then any overflow was directed onto a Playfield so that it could further infiltrate. So it's always important to have, just like a regular flood control facility, we want to have our emergency overflow paths worked out. So you can see, one of the design considerations here is these rocks in the infiltration basin are pretty big. And they wanted big rocks so the kids couldn't pick them up and throw them. So they're elementary school kids, so I don't think they can pick these up. Now, if they do, it's going to be really bad. And then there's solar in the background. So the school district got a nicer parking lot, helps meet water quality benefits. Yes?
It looks like loose gravel, is that pavement? Is that pavement or something?
Yeah, you know what, the quality on this isn't showing up very good on the projector, but it is, this is conventional asphalt, and this is porous asphalt.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm out there to give you a little bit of scale. One of the things that happen during construction, so grant projects are always slightly difficult. We did not have, we were not engaged for construction-based services because a lot of times, especially schools, want to provide those services themselves, and then there end up being issues that they don't know to catch. And a lot of times we'll catch them in the photos they send, but they didn't send photos of this. So the rocks are stacked up too high. Ideally, they should have been lower to allow for water to pond in there. We checked it in the model and it still works okay, but that would have been better had it been built like that. I think this is the only residential project I have in here. It's in the Sacramento area. Basically a master plan project. And most of what I'm showing in here has a little bit of a park theme or a public theme with it. This particular development has a lot of areas set aside for like community gardens, orchards, parks, and such. And so the idea is all the turquoise facility areas are low impact development features. But in a extreme event, some of these parks areas will flood and provide kind of backup stormwater management. This one was fun. It was one of the first ones that the city of Sacramento had seen with EPA SWIM LID modeling, and so we got to work through a lot of those challenges with them, but they were good to work with on it.
Are the red and the purple also stormwater facilities? Or what?
You know, the red, they're showing different drainage area boundaries. Yeah. So the turquoise is essentially just either bioretention or vegetated swales, and then the bigger ones are hydromodification management facilities. So kind of deeper bioretention, but trying to control more volume. And I'm excited about this one. We have not started yet. We're just scoping. We just won a drainage master plan with the Port of Corpus Christi, which it seems like, why would, it's a little port in Texas, why wouldn't they be doing anything very sustainable? But they're actually one of the larger ports in the country, and they have won a lot of green marine awards. So we're going to be looking at, on a master plan basis, incorporating green infrastructure and other stormwater BMPs throughout the port. So ask me about this in a year, and there will be some fun stories to tell. Up in the San Francisco Bay Area, this was worked on with the San Francisco Estuary Institute, where we developed a green infrastructure GIS-based siting tool. So things like soil type, slope, depth to groundwater, land use, is it a publicly owned land, a park space, roadway, risk of liquefaction. How important is that? And then we kind of weighted and ranked things and looked at what LID features were appropriate to put in what type of condition. And then this upper graph shows the green absolute best areas for bioretention within a particular watershed. It does not mean that you can't put bioretention in one of the wide areas, but it means these are ideal locations if we're doing watershed retrofits and want to look at optimization. So the tool has things in it like, we've gone back and added multiple times, but like planter boxes and wetlands, vegetated swales. I think we even put detention in it. And then next phases were specific watershed modeling in the Sonoma Creek watershed modeling within the city of Oakland, within the city of San Jose, and looking at water quality improvements, and then developing a master plan for green infrastructure. And so we found the very first watershed that we modeled was a rural, pretty undeveloped watershed. And what we found was, as to be expected, extensive implementation of LID was going to bring down peak flows within that watershed, of course improve water quality too. And then we did some further analysis kind of set the stage for optimization. And of course, if you have a more developed watershed, if you implement LID, you'll see an even greater reduction in runoff volume. This is a retrofit adjacent to a flood control channel. There's a dog park within here. So, you know, what types of pollutants of concern might we have from a dog park?
Fecal coliforms.
Yep, fecal coliforms, nutrients, maybe trash if people are throwing their trash, who knows. So the idea was to retrofit, so the swale alongside the flood control channel accepted sheet flow runoff. And the idea was to retrofit that swale to treat the runoff to improve water quality. And the reason there's a swale is because if the runoff just goes right over the side, you start to get erosion over the side of the channel. So anyway, monitoring is being done now, but we looked at vegetated swale portions and then bioretention portions within this system. This is kind of more of a watershed level study. This is in a creek called Zoo Creek in the Fort Worth area within a redeveloping section. And so we zoomed in, I wish I had a map of results here, but so we zoomed in and we're able to quantify how much will impact development was proposed for different areas. It's essentially the green features on the right. And then did modeling of that in SWIM and looked at the reduction. This was focused more on hydrology than water quality because the whole area is it basically floods in like a 2 to 5 year event. And so we were looking at incorporating green infrastructure to help improve the level of flood protection in smaller events in conjunction with gray infrastructure. And then more on the larger watershed side, I started on this project probably about 12 years ago, which was a regional stormwater master plan that looked at all the watersheds within the city of Houston and identified regional flood control facilities, but also opportunities to improve water quality, whether that be green infrastructure or other methods within the flood control facility. So this was the first project that ended up falling out of that and going into construction. So we tied it into a CIP roadway design project, but basically diverted flows out of an existing stream to provide some regional flood control. Did wetlands plantings in the bottom of the basin, tied that back into a regional flood control facility so that it expanded that habitat and ecological benefits. And then it's right adjacent to a park which is used very frequently by a community that's really in need of parks, but there's a lot of people that go out and walk. So we looked at expanding the tree canopy coverage. So that helps with the urban heat island effect that Rebecca talked about. It also provides more habitat and it makes it a lot more pleasant to walk along the basin. So incorporating trees along the basin is part of the walking path. And then again, the signage just to educate people of what's going on and hopefully it helps them help preserve the life of the facilities, like don't throw trash in it and things like that. These are projects that are just getting started and they're pretty exciting watershed level projects to look at water quality retrofits within the City of Austin watersheds. So they kind of uniquely have flooding issues, but they're also very concerned about water quality. The criteria isn't as stringent as what we're used to in California, but there's a lot of aquifer recharge areas there. And then just in general, the desire to have sustainable, healthy watersheds. So looking at things like hydromodification management and the water quality. And because I haven't had a whole lot of hydrographs in here are some hydrographs we can look at briefly. This is from a volumetric design procedure that we developed for the City of Austin. And what it does, I'm going to step away from kind of the green infrastructure. This is a method for detention that takes into account the fact that anytime we develop, we have excess urban runoff volume as compared to an undeveloped condition. Not as big of a deal when you have a redeveloping site that's kind of replacing impervious cover. So that excess urban runoff volume is part of what causes stream hydromodification and things like that, as well as the timing can stack up downstream and cause flooding. So this method is intended to address that. But we went a step further, and we also incorporated in, green infrastructure and basically being able to use that volume within the required method. And then more of a statewide type study looking at, and what I liked about this is this was a natural channel design study, but we worked with, he's at SWCA now, he used to be at KBR, Lee Forbes, and also some of Stantec's national experts on natural channel design. We looked at, is it applicable for all of the 7 physiographic provinces of Texas? And yes, it is. It's really applicable for most types of topography. You just have to customize it. But natural channel design is great to treat or to handle a certain circumstance or certain level of development. Say you want to deal with our watershed's 50% developed. We want to have a stable channel, more of a natural design to handle that. But that doesn't address future development, and that's where the low impact development can kind of go hand in hand with it, so that we can have, again, improved watershed health. And then down to LA County, lots of stormwater projects, capture projects in Los Angeles County right now. A lot of them are at park sites, which is a great double use of space. This is one park site, so you've got the playfields, and the ball fields are kind of what they are, but you've got a lot of surface area in a very expensive real estate market. And so if we can go below that and get the stormwater capture, it might be diverting flows out of a drain or a channel that looks like this on the lower left. So there's a good potential. It's not just capturing what falls on the side, it's actually pulling flows out of the watershed so that we can treat a very large watershed volume within a particular site. And at Cal Poly, lots of really good things going on the sustainability side. So we've been working on the master plan EIR, more on the water wastewater front on this particular project. But Cal Poly's doing a lot of really great things. They've already implemented a ton of water conservation, both indoor and outdoor. They're also looking at recycled water. And so these types of things are not stormwater specific, but they affect stormwater because when we're using water conserving facilities more efficient landscape, you don't have the excess runoff. So we have less nutrients runoff and things like that. So this is a perfect tie to that systematic systems approach where we tie all the water systems together. And just a few final thoughts. So there's a lot of excellent opportunities to tie together flood control, water quality, erosion. It doesn't have to be within parks, but parks do present a really good opportunity to have a double use or more resilient use of land. What I haven't touched too much on is the modeling for the regional facilities. It's not just let's plop it down and hope it works. We need to have the numbers behind it and do the modeling to show that we've got an optimized system that has a good return on investment. And I haven't talked a lot about O&M, but it's super important. Rebecca talked about some of the triple bottom line. So when we do that type of economic costing, we want to look at not just what does it cost today, but let's plan for the maintenance so that the facilities last as long as possible, function as good as possible, and that we can rebuild them at the end of the life cycle. Okay, and with that, I'll open it up for any questions or comments. And I am ENVSP certified, so.
And a bunch of other things.
But yeah.
All right, awesome.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Interesting project. Thanks, Jennifer.